You want results now. You want shortcuts. You want instant gratification. But the truth nobody tells you is this: slow growth is still growth. Every small action, every patient step, every day you refuse to quit is building a foundation for a life of purpose, resilience, and unstoppable success. If you can master patience, embrace consistency, and trust the process, even when nothing seems to happen, you will win in ways the impatient never will. Today I'm going to show you how to turn slow progress into unstoppable power. Chapter 1. Quick wins are a trap. You want results fast. You want the payoff yesterday. You scroll, you click, you chase the next trend, the next viral success, the next shortcut that promises instant gratification. You want to see results now. And I get it. We all do. But here's the hard truth. Chasing quick wins is a trap. Quick wins feel good in the moment, but they do not build strength. They do not build character. They do not build the kind of life that lasts. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Remember that phrase: quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Say it with me. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. That is the key. That is the principle that will define your success for the rest of your life. Quick wins are seductive. They promise the reward without the work. They feel like progress, but they are fragile. They are surface level. They are temporary. You might post a viral video today, get a burst of likes, a flood of comments, maybe even some recognition, but tomorrow it's gone. Tomorrow the momentum evaporates, and you're left chasing the next hit. That's the cycle of quick wins. You're never building something real. You're spinning your wheels. You're running on a treadmill that goes nowhere. That is the danger. Here's the thing you need to understand. Real growth compounds silently. Think about a savings account. You deposit $10 a day. It feels small. It feels insignificant. You check your balance after a week. Nothing has changed. You check it after a month. Maybe a few dollars of interest. But you keep going. You keep depositing. You don't quit. You don't complain. You don't chase flashy get-rich-quick schemes. You trust the process. You trust time. Years later, your account has grown beyond what you imagined. That is slow growth. That is the life you are building. That is the difference between chasing quick wins and committing to the process. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Let that sink in. Repeat it. Embed it in your mind. Let me give you a real-world example. Athletes. Look at professional athletes. Do you think they become champions overnight? Do you think they make it to the top by luck, by a viral moment, by a single impressive game? No. Champions train every single day. They show up when no one is watching. They lift the weights that are boring. They run the drills that feel endless. They push through fatigue, doubt, and failure. Every day, small progress compounds. Every day they add a tiny bit more strength, more skill, more resilience. And eventually, decades of slow, patient, consistent work pay off in ways that no shortcut ever could. That's the lesson. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. You have a choice. You can chase the quick win or you can commit to the process. That's the choice you are facing right now. You don't need anyone's permission to grow slowly. You don't need recognition. You don't need applause. You don't need instant validation. You only need one thing: consistency. You only need to show up. You only need to do the work that matters, day after day. That's the key. That's the discipline that separates the people who crash and burn from the people who build legacies. Quick wins are temporary. Quick wins are illusions. They make you feel accomplished for a moment, but they do not change who you are. They do not forge the mindset you need for lasting success. They do not prepare you for the challenges ahead. Slow growth is what does. Slow growth teaches you patience. Slow growth teaches you resilience. Slow growth builds your identity, your skills, your habits, and your confidence. That is power. That is strength. That is the life worth having. Here's another critical point. Chasing quick wins trains the wrong part of your brain. It trains you to want everything now. It trains you to avoid discomfort. It trains you to give up when the results aren't immediate. That is a dangerous habit. You cannot succeed in life by avoiding discomfort. You cannot achieve mastery by quitting when it's hard. You cannot build a meaningful career, a strong body, or deep relationships if you are addicted to instant gratification. That's the trap. Quick wins feel good, but they make you weak. Slow growth builds strength. Remember that mantra. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. You must repeat it until it becomes your truth. You must embed it into your daily choices. So what do you do instead? You start small. You start consistent. You embrace the boring, the repetitive, the invisible work. You pick one skill, one habit, one system, and you commit to it daily. Don't worry about recognition. Don't worry about applause. Don't worry about likes, shares, or instant feedback. Focus on the work. Focus on the process. Focus on showing up. Every day. That is what separates the winners from the quitters. Every small step compounds. Every small win stacks. Every day you are either building the life you want or destroying it with impatience. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's a practical step you can take today. Pick one area of your life where you've been chasing quick wins. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's skill building, maybe it's your career. Now, identify one action you can commit to every single day for the next 30 days, no matter how small. Make it boring. Make it repetitive. Make it invisible. And do it. Show up. That is your slow growth. That is your path to lasting success. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need a spotlight. You just need to keep going. That's it. That's all it takes. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Say it one last time. Embed it in your mind. Live it. Remember, slow growth is not glamorous. It's not flashy. It's not viral. But it works. It lasts. It compounds. It transforms you from the inside out. It changes your habits, your identity, and ultimately your life. Quick wins are loud. Slow growth is silent. Quick wins are temporary. Slow growth is permanent. And you have a choice. You can chase the noise, or you can commit to the quiet, relentless, unstoppable power of steady growth. That's the choice. That's the lesson. That's the difference between fleeting success and a life that matters. You mastered the understanding that quick wins are illusions. You learned that slow, patient growth is the only path to lasting power. Now, let's talk about the next principle that will elevate your life even further. Chapter 2. Show up when no one is watching. Success is not about applause. It's not about likes, comments, or recognition. It's not about people noticing you. Real success is invisible at first. It happens in the quiet hours, in the moments when no one is watching. That is the battleground of greatness. That is where character is forged. You have a choice every single day. Show up when no one is watching or wait for the spotlight to appear. And here's the truth. If you wait for the spotlight, you will wait forever. You have a choice. That's the key. Consistency is invisible at first. You will not see the results immediately. Your friends won't notice. Your coworkers won't notice. Social media won't reward you. The work feels small. The effort feels wasted. But this is exactly where transformation begins. Every day you do the work, you are building momentum. Every day you show up, you are strengthening your discipline. Every day you persist, you are creating the future you desire. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. Repeat that phrase. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. Let it sink in. Let it guide every choice. Think about writers who became bestsellers. Do you think they published their first book and instantly became famous? No. They wrote in silence. They edited in obscurity. They faced rejection letters, criticism, and countless hours with no validation. And yet they showed up. They wrote one page, one chapter, one draft at a time. Every day. The work was invisible. The effort was unseen. But it compounded. Eventually, the world noticed. The recognition came, not first but last. That is the pattern. That is the principle. Quick recognition is temporary. Consistency is permanent. You have a choice. Show up for your future self. That's the key. Entrepreneurs know this better than anyone. The overnight success stories you hear about are almost always years in the making. They worked in garages, basements, and coffee shops while no one was paying attention. They coded, they pitched, they learned. Every day they built their skill, refined their product, and survived the grind. They understood a secret that most people ignore. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. They understood that success is not a moment, it is a process. Quick wins fade. Slow, invisible work lasts. That is the difference. That is the power. Consistency is a muscle. It is not automatic. You have to train it. And training it is uncomfortable. It is boring. It is repetitive. You will want to quit. You will want validation. You will want applause. Don't look for it. Ignore it. Build the habit of showing up even when it's hard. Build the habit of showing up even when no one notices. Every time you show up, you are reinforcing the part of you that can endure. Every time you persist, you are proving to yourself that your life is not dictated by instant gratification. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. You don't need their permission. You don't need applause. You don't need the spotlight. You only need consistency. That is all it takes. That is all that matters. Let's get practical. Here's what showing up looks like. Pick one area of your life. It could be your craft, your fitness, your career, your education, whatever matters most to you. Commit to one action every single day. It can be small. It can feel invisible. It can feel pointless. That is exactly why it works. Write one paragraph. Code one feature. Study one concept. Run 1 mile. Show up. Do it. Repeat it tomorrow. Repeat it the next day. And then the next. Over time, you will be amazed at how these small, invisible actions add up. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Showing up compounds into skill. Showing up compounds into confidence. Showing up compounds into a life that matters. That is power. That is transformation. You have a choice. Show up for your future self. That's the key. Look at creators who became influential online. Most of them spent years producing content that no one watched. They learned, they improved, they adjusted, and they kept going. They didn't post for validation. They posted for progress. They didn't quit because the audience was small. They quit when they stopped showing up. And eventually their consistency paid off. They weren't lucky, they were persistent. That is the difference between fleeting recognition and lasting influence. That is the lesson. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. Repeat it again. Say it out loud. Embed it into your mind. Let it guide your daily decisions. This principle applies to every area of life. Relationships, health, career, skills, habits, they all require showing up when no one is watching. You will face resistance. You will face fatigue. You will face doubt. And that is exactly when showing up matters the most. When no one is watching, you are still building. When no one notices, you are still growing. When it feels pointless, you are still gaining strength. Every invisible action matters. Every quiet effort counts. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. You have a choice. That's the key. Now, let's address a common objection. What if I never get recognized? That is irrelevant. Recognition is external. Growth is internal. Your identity, your skill, your discipline, your resilience, these are all invisible at first. They are not measured by likes, applause, or attention. They are measured by persistence, by consistency, by the daily choice to show up. The world may never notice immediately. That is fine. You are showing up for the one person who matters most, yourself. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. That is power. That is freedom. That is lasting success. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Showing up lasts. And here is the final truth. The people who succeed are not always the most talented. They are not always the most intelligent. They are the ones who show up when no one else does. They are the ones who embrace the grind in silence. They are the ones who compound their effort over months, years, and decades. Every day a little stronger. Every day a little smarter. Every day a little closer to the life they imagined. That is what consistency is. That is what showing up is. That is the secret nobody talks about. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Showing up when no one is watching lasts. You mastered the understanding that real progress happens in the unseen, silent work. You embraced the idea that consistency is invisible, but it defines character. You committed mentally to showing up for yourself even when no one else cares. Now it's time to build on that foundation. Your future self is watching every day. Show up for them. You don't need anyone's permission. You don't need applause. You don't need instant recognition. You only need persistence. That's the lesson. That's the principle. Next, we move to the power of patience. Chapter 3. Patience is not weakness. Most people misunderstand patience. They confuse it with laziness. They confuse it with inaction. They confuse it with giving up. But here's the hard truth. Waiting is not doing nothing. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is preparation. Waiting is strategy. Waiting is the quiet, invisible work that compounds into unstoppable growth. Patience is power. Patience is progress. Repeat that with me. Patience is power. Patience is progress. Say it again. Embed it in your mind. That is the key to mastering slow growth. Life is not built on instant gratification. It is built on delayed rewards. It is built on the small, disciplined choices you make day after day, week after week, year after year. Investors understand this better than anyone. They don't try to double their money overnight. They don't chase get-rich-quick schemes. They understand compounding. They invest consistently. They let time do the work. 10 years later, the returns are massive. 20 years later, the growth is life-changing. That's the power of patience. That's the principle we are building here. Patience is power. Patience is progress. You have a choice. Chase fast results or embrace the slow, unstoppable climb. That's the choice. That's the lesson. Patience is not passive. Patience is active. Patience requires discipline. It requires focus. It requires resisting the urge to act impulsively. Every day you must remind yourself, I am building something that lasts. I am growing in ways I cannot yet see. I am investing in my future self. That is the mindset that separates those who fail from those who win. Impatience leads to mistakes. Impatience leads to shortcuts. Impatience leads to failure. Patience leads to preparation. Patience leads to skill. Patience leads to mastery. Repeat it. Patience is power. Patience is progress. That is the mantra. That is the truth. Look at anyone who has built something significant. Entrepreneurs, leaders, athletes, artists, they all understood the importance of patience. They did not expect results after one try. They did not measure their progress by immediate outcomes. They measured it by consistent action. They measured it by improvement over time. They understood that the visible results are always lagging indicators. You won't see your growth right away. You won't see the impact of your efforts immediately. That is why most people quit. They lose faith. They stop believing in the process. Don't be most people. You have a choice. Show up consistently. Embrace patience. Repeat, patience is power. Patience is progress. Here's a simple truth. Impatience is your enemy. Impatience will convince you to quit, to sell too soon, to give up before the work pays off. Impatience will make you compare yourself to others. Impatience will make you chase shiny objects instead of focusing on what matters. Every time you feel the urge to rush, repeat to yourself, patience is power. Patience is progress. Let it guide your decisions. Let it control your actions. Let it protect you from the trap of instant gratification. Waiting is not doing nothing. Waiting is active preparation. Waiting is learning. Waiting is improving. Waiting is compounding your skill, your knowledge, and your strength. Consider the investor again. Compounding doesn't happen in days or months. It happens in years, decades even. Small, consistent contributions accumulate quietly until the results are undeniable. That's the power of patience. That's the power of delayed action. That's the foundation of long-term success. And this is exactly the mindset you need in every area of life. Patience is power. Patience is progress. Repeat it. Live it. Now let's make this practical. Where in your life are you rushing? Where are you trying to force results? Where are you impatient with your own progress? Identify it. Write it down. Commit to taking the long view. Every day take the action that compounds over time. Every day add a little to your skill, to your knowledge, to your discipline. Every day make a choice to embrace patience instead of panic. That is the practice. That is the habit. That is the key to winning in life. Patience also strengthens your character. When you resist the urge for instant gratification, you are training your mind. You are building self-control. You are proving to yourself that you can endure discomfort. You are proving to yourself that you can trust the process. That is rare. That is powerful. Most people give up. Most people quit. Most people look for shortcuts. Not you. Not if you follow this principle. Patience is your weapon. Patience is your armor. Patience is your path to mastery. Repeat it one more time. Patience is power. Patience is progress. Consider the way athletes train. They don't reach peak performance overnight. They endure thousands of hours of practice. They repeat drills until their bodies and minds are conditioned to perfection. They learn to tolerate discomfort. They learn to delay satisfaction. They learn to embrace the long game. And when the moment comes, the championship, the performance, the final exam, they are ready. That is the payoff of patience. That is what slow growth builds. Quick wins fade. Patience lasts. Patience compounds. That is your advantage. Here's the bottom line. You have a choice. You can chase instant results and fade into mediocrity, or you can embrace patience and build something lasting. You can quit when the work is invisible, or you can persist and win when no one else is looking. You can sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term strength. You can let time do the work for you. That is the discipline. That is the strategy. That is the transformation. Patience is power. Patience is progress. Embed it. Repeat it. Live it. So here's what I want you to do after this chapter. Identify one area of your life where you have been rushing. Commit to taking the long view. Every day, take one consistent action that compounds over time. Ignore immediate results. Ignore validation. Ignore applause. Focus only on preparation, growth, and persistence. Watch how, month by month, the invisible work adds up. That is the slow, unstoppable power of patience. Quick wins fade. Patience endures. Patience transforms. You have a choice. That is the key. You now understand that waiting is not weakness. You understand that patience is active, disciplined, and strategic. You understand that the invisible, slow work compounds over time into unstoppable results. You have committed mentally to practicing patience in your life. And now it's time to layer this principle with the next step in your growth. Chapter 4. The Silent Cost of Impatience. Impatience is a silent killer. Most people don't even realize it. It sneaks in, whispers in your ear, and convinces you to take shortcuts. It tells you to chase the next trend. It tells you to act without thinking. It tells you to value speed over strategy. And here's the hard truth. Rushing costs more than you think. Repeat that. Rushing costs more than you think. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Rushing costs more than you think. Impatience destroys opportunities. You act too fast without preparation. You skip steps. You ignore fundamentals. You make decisions that feel urgent but are actually careless. Quick decisions create quick regrets. You see this everywhere, in business, in relationships, in careers. Companies chase trends, launch products before they're ready, and collapse under their own haste. Entrepreneurs make impulsive deals and burn bridges. Careers stall because people act before they're ready. That is the silent cost of impatience. You have a choice. Act with urgency or act with preparation. That is the difference between short-lived wins and lasting success. Impatience also destroys relationships. Think about it. When you rush, you make promises you cannot keep. You speak before listening. You demand results too quickly. Friends, partners, colleagues, they all notice. They lose trust. They lose respect. Impatience erodes credibility quietly but consistently. One rash decision, one impulsive word, one failed commitment, these add up. That's why patience is not weakness. Patience protects your reputation. Patience strengthens your bonds. Patience compounds trust. Rushing costs more than you think. Repeat it again. Let it guide your interactions. Look at the business world. Some of the fastest growing companies fail faster than anyone expects. What? They chase trends instead of building strong foundations. They scale before they're ready. They focus on hype instead of systems. And when the market shifts, they crumble. Meanwhile, Companies that grow steadily, patiently, and strategically dominate their industries for decades. They build solid infrastructure. They invest in culture. They train their teams. They prepare for challenges before they happen. The difference? Patience versus haste. Quick wins fade. Slow, disciplined growth lasts. You have a choice. That's the key. Here's another truth. Impatience clouds judgment. When you feel rushed, you stop thinking critically. You ignore data. You dismiss advice. You let emotions dictate actions. That is a recipe for mistakes. Mistakes cost time, money, energy, and credibility. And the worst part? You rarely see the cost immediately. It's silent, invisible, and cumulative. Rushing costs more than you think. Repeat it again. Let it settle into your mind. Every impulsive choice carries a hidden price. Every shortcut has consequences. That is why mastering patience is non-negotiable. Let's bring this closer to home. Your personal growth, your career, your craft, they all suffer when you rush. You want mastery overnight. You want recognition immediately. You want results without the effort. That is the trap. Quick wins feel good at first, but they fade. Slow, deliberate effort builds skill, credibility, and resilience. Every time you act with patience, you invest in your future self. Every time you resist the urge to rush, you protect your opportunities. Every time you focus on the fundamentals, you strengthen your foundation. Rushing costs more than you think. Remember it. Repeat it. Live it. Impatience also affects your mindset. It creates anxiety, stress, and frustration. You constantly feel behind. You constantly feel pressured. You constantly feel like you're missing out. This mental state clouds your focus, drains your energy, and erodes your discipline. Conversely, patience gives you clarity. Patience allows perspective. Patience lets you make better decisions. Patience compounds your mental strength over time. That is power. That is progress. Patience wins where haste fails. Rushing costs more than you think. Say it again. Let it guide your thoughts. Here's how to practice patience in a practical, actionable way. Identify one area of your life where you feel rushed. It could be a project, a relationship, or a financial decision. Step back. Slow down. Assess. Plan. Take one deliberate action each day instead of several impulsive ones. Focus on building a foundation instead of chasing recognition. Focus on skill instead of speed. Focus on preparation instead of panic. Every small, measured step compounds into strength over time. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Rushing costs more than you think. Repeat it, embed it, live it. Think about great leaders, innovators, and creators. They didn't act on impulse. They measured. They prepared. They waited for the right moment. They built systems, networks, and processes before striking. They understood the hidden cost of impatience. They understood that hasty decisions might bring a temporary thrill, but patient action brings lasting results. That is why they dominate their fields. That is why they are remembered. That is why slow growth wins. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. You have a choice. Act impulsively or act strategically. That's the lesson. That's the principle. Your challenge today is simple. Audit your life. Identify one area where impatience has cost you or where impatience could cost you. Commit to slowing down. Commit to preparation. Commit to measured action. Resist the urge to chase instant results. Focus on building foundations, relationships, and credibility that last. Trust me, the payoff will be far greater than any quick win you could chase. Rushing costs more than you think. Repeat it one last time. Let it guide your decisions, your actions, your mindset. You now understand the silent cost of impatience. You understand how hasty decisions destroy opportunities, relationships, and credibility. You have seen how businesses fail, how careers stall, and how personal growth suffers when impatience takes over. You have committed mentally to slowing down, preparing, and acting strategically. You have chosen patience over panic. That is the foundation for lasting success. Next, we move to a principle that turns boring effort into brilliance. Chapter 5. Embrace the boring work. Most people want to skip to the exciting part. They want recognition. They want results. They want the thrill of success without the grind. But here's the truth. Success lives in the boring work. The small, repetitive tasks nobody sees are the ones that matter most. That's where mastery is built. That's where skill is forged. That's where greatness is quietly created. Boring work builds brilliance. Repeat that. Say it out loud. Boring work builds brilliance. Let it sink in. Boring work builds brilliance. That is the key. That is the principle you must live by. Every musician you admire, every athlete you envy, every leader you respect, they all embrace the boring work. A violinist practices scales for hours before performing on stage. A basketball player dribbles drills hundreds of times before making the winning shot. A CEO reviews financial reports, emails, and systems every day while no one notices. They do the repetitive, unseen work that builds foundations. Foundations that last. Foundations that hold under pressure. Foundations that turn small, invisible effort into extraordinary results. Boring work builds brilliance. Repeat it again. Say it. Believe it. Live it. Here's a harsh truth. Most people quit when the work gets tedious. Most people chase excitement, novelty, and instant gratification. Most people want to feel progress, even if it's superficial. That is why most people never reach their potential. They avoid the boring work. They underestimate its power. They miss the compounding effect of daily, deliberate action. Meanwhile, those who commit to the grind quietly, steadily, and consistently dominate over time. They master their craft, strengthen their discipline, and compound results that last a lifetime. That is the difference. Boring work builds brilliance. You have a choice. Think about the athlete who practices free throws after practice ends. Nobody sees it. Nobody cheers. Nobody praises them. They could stop, relax, or take a break. But they show up, day after day, repetition after repetition. Every shot improves their muscle memory, their focus, their confidence. Years later, when the moment matters most, the game-winning shot, they perform flawlessly. That is the invisible payoff of boring work. That is why champions exist. That is why the extraordinary seem effortless. But it is never effortless. It is the sum of all the small, unseen actions compounded over time. Boring work builds brilliance. Repeat it. Embed it. Live it. This principle applies to every area of life. Learning a skill, building a business, mastering a craft, improving your health, it all comes down to showing up and doing the work that feels mundane. Writing 1 page per day. Running 1 mile per day. Learning 1 small concept per day. Practicing fundamentals every single day. It feels repetitive. Feels boring. It feels invisible. But this is where the compounding happens. This is where progress accumulates. This is where brilliance is born. That is why slow, consistent effort beats bursts of energy. That is why boring work is the secret weapon of high performers. Here's another truth. Boring work builds resilience. Doing the same thing every day without recognition teaches discipline. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. You learn to trust the process. You learn to value long-term results over short-term excitement. You learn that success is not about the applause. It's about mastery. You learn that your identity is forged in consistency, not in flashy moments. That is why your future self will thank you for embracing the boring work today. Repeat it one more time. Boring work builds brilliance. Many people avoid boring work because it feels unrewarding. They measure progress by excitement, novelty, or recognition. That is a trap. Recognition is fleeting. Excitement is temporary. True progress is invisible. It compounds silently like money in a savings account. Each small action, repeated daily, builds skill, confidence, and mastery. Over months and years, this invisible work transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary results. That is the power of boring work. Boring work builds brilliance. Repeat it again. Say it. Believe it. Live it. Here's a practical step. Identify the boring work in your life. What small, repetitive actions will improve your craft, your skills, your health, or your mindset? Now commit to doing them daily. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be visible. It doesn't have to impress anyone. Write 1 paragraph. Do 1 set of exercises. Review 1 report. Rehearse 1 scale. Show up. Repeat it tomorrow. Repeat it the next day. Repeat it for a month, 6 months, a year. That is the compounding effect. That is where brilliance is created. Boring work builds brilliance. You have a choice. Commit or quit. That's the key. Consider leaders in business. The CEOs, founders, and innovators you admire did not reach their position by seeking applause. They built systems. They made countless small, disciplined decisions. They reviewed operations, improved processes, trained employees, and learned constantly. Nobody noticed. Nobody celebrated. And yet, over time, their work compounded into companies that dominate markets, influence industries, and last for decades. That is the quiet power of boring work. That is why the extraordinary always outlasts the ordinary. Boring work builds brilliance. Repeat it. Live it. Trust it. Another benefit: boring work removes excuses. When you commit to showing up daily, repetition becomes habit. Habit becomes identity. Identity becomes momentum. You stop relying on motivation. You stop depending on inspiration. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You show up because it is who you are. You do the work because it is non-negotiable. You trust the process because it works. That is the difference between people who quit and people who dominate. That is why boring work is essential. Repeat one last time. Boring work builds brilliance. You now understand the principle. You understand that the small, repetitive, invisible actions matter more than the flashy, visible wins. You understand that mastery, skill, and long-term success are forged in the grind, not in shortcuts. You understand that discipline is built by showing up day after day, even when no one is watching. And you have committed mentally to embracing the boring work in your life. That is the foundation for brilliance. That is the path to slow, unstoppable growth. That is how ordinary effort becomes extraordinary results. Next, we move to the principle that multiplies effort over time. Chapter 6. Compounding effort beats talent. Talent is overrated. Natural ability feels like an advantage, but it decays. Skills that aren't practiced fade. Gifts that aren't honed are wasted. What separates the mediocre from the extraordinary is not talent. It is effort. Consistent, relentless effort, day after day, compounds over time. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Say it out loud. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Let it sink in. Embed it in your mind. That is the key principle for building lasting success. Every famous innovator, leader, and historical figure you admire understood this. They didn't rely on talent alone. They relied on action. They relied on daily discipline. Thomas Edison didn't wait for genius to strike. He worked relentlessly, testing thousands of experiments until he succeeded. Every day, small, persistent effort moved him closer to results. That is the power of compounding effort. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Repeat it. Live it. Trust it. Look at modern innovators. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. They didn't succeed because they were naturally talented. They succeeded because they worked every day learning, improving, and experimenting. They embraced repetition. They embraced patience. They embraced the long-term grind. They understood that results compound over time. Effort compounds. Talent decays. That is the reality most people ignore. That is why most people fail. They expect instant results. They rely on raw ability. They quit when they face obstacles. You have a choice. Rely on talent or commit to compounding effort. That is the difference. Consistent effort creates momentum. Every action you take, no matter how small, builds on the last. It creates a chain reaction. One disciplined choice leads to another. One day of showing up creates the habit for tomorrow. One small improvement multiplies over weeks and months. This is how ordinary people achieve extraordinary results. This is how mastery is forged. This is why effort beats talent every single time. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Repeat it again. Let it guide your decisions, your habits, your daily actions. Here's a harsh truth. Talent without effort is wasted potential. Natural ability is a gift, but it is meaningless without action. You might be the most talented person in the room, but if you stop learning, stop practicing, stop showing up, you will fall behind. Meanwhile, the person with less talent but relentless effort will surpass you. Why? Because their daily actions accumulate. Their skills multiply. Their experience compounds. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Say it again. Let it become your mantra. Consider athletes. The best players in the world are not always the most naturally gifted. They are the ones who train every day. They perfect the fundamentals. They repeat drills long after practice ends. They endure pain, fatigue, and boredom. Every rep, every drill, every small improvement compounds into dominance on the field. Talent may open the door, but effort carries you across the threshold. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Repeat it. Say it. Believe it. Live it. This principle applies to every area of life. Your career, your skills, your health, your relationships, they all respond to consistent effort. Study a little each day. Practice a skill every day. Exercise a little every day. Invest a little every day. Read, learn, write, create, every single day. These small, invisible actions accumulate. They compound silently until results are undeniable. That is the secret the world's most successful people exploit. Effort compounds. Talent decays. You have a choice. Embrace daily effort or rely on fleeting natural ability. That is the key. Here's another truth. Effort strengthens your identity. When you commit to small, consistent actions, you are proving to yourself who you are. You are saying, I am disciplined. I am persistent. I am capable of mastery. Talent cannot do that. Talent may make you feel confident temporarily, but it does not create identity. Only consistent, repeated effort builds character, skill, and confidence that last. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Repeat it. Let it guide your self-perception and your actions. Practical application. Identify one area where you want to excel. Don't worry about talent. Focus on daily effort. Break it into small, repeatable actions. Commit to performing them every single day for 30 days, then 90 days, then a year. Track your progress. Notice the compounding effect. At first, it will feel slow, invisible, and tedious. That is normal. That is expected. The results are silent at first. But over time, compounding effort creates unstoppable momentum. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Say it again. Let it sink in. Live it. Remember, the world rewards persistence. The world punishes those who rely solely on ability. A talented musician who never practices will be forgotten. A talented writer who doesn't write daily will never publish. A talented entrepreneur who doesn't take consistent action will fail. Meanwhile, the person with less talent but relentless consistency will rise above them all. Effort compounds. Talent decays. That is the law of growth. That is the law of mastery. That is the truth you must embrace. You now understand the principle. Compounding effort beats talent. You know that small, consistent actions, repeated daily, accumulate into skill, confidence, and results that far surpass natural ability. You have committed mentally to embracing effort over reliance on talent. You have chosen the slow, deliberate path that builds unstoppable growth. Effort compounds. Talent decays. Repeat it. Embed it. Live it. That is the foundation of extraordinary achievement. Next, we move to the principle that protects your focus and creates lasting results. Chapter 7. Ignore instant validation. The world is obsessed with recognition. Likes, applause, followers, praise, they all feel good in the moment. They make you feel important. They make you feel seen. But here's the harsh truth. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Short-term praise steals long-term power. That is the principle you must understand to build lasting success. When you chase validation, you give away control. You allow external approval to dictate your choices. You let other people define your worth. You measure progress by likes, shares, and applause instead of by growth, skill, and results. That is a trap. That is a distraction. That is how potential is wasted. Instead, focus on creating lasting value, not fleeting recognition. Focus on building systems, not chasing applause. Focus on mastering your craft, not seeking approval. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it again. Let it guide your actions. Look at creators who dominate their fields. Most of them spent years building silently. They posted, they created, they experimented, and almost nobody noticed. They ignored instant validation. They focused on the work itself. They focused on improving daily, learning, and growing. Then, years later, when they were ready, the world finally noticed. The recognition came, not first but last. That is the difference. That is the secret. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. That is the pattern of mastery. Validation is seductive because it feels immediate. You post a video, write a blog, finish a project, and the world responds instantly. It feels like progress. Feels like success. But it is fleeting. It is temporary. It does not build resilience. It does not build skill. It does not build character. If you allow it to drive your decisions, you will chase applause instead of results. You will trade depth for attention. You will sacrifice long-term growth for short-term satisfaction. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it again. Let it guide your choices. Creators who build silently understand this principle. They post content, write books, or release products without worrying about immediate feedback. They focus on improvement, not applause. They focus on systems, not validation. They focus on daily progress, not the reaction of others. And over time, their consistent effort compounds. Their skill multiplies. Their influence grows. Their success becomes undeniable. That is the power of ignoring instant validation. That is how ordinary people become extraordinary. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Say it again. Embed it in your mind. Live it. Here's the practical truth. You cannot rely on external approval to motivate you. You cannot let likes, praise, or applause define your effort. Motivation is fleeting. Inspiration is unreliable. Discipline is the only thing that lasts. When you focus on your work, your craft, and your daily growth, you are creating results that endure. You are building systems that work even when nobody is watching. You are protecting your energy from distraction. You are investing in your future self. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it again. Let it guide every decision. Consider the entrepreneur who ignores social trends. They focus on creating products, improving systems, and mastering their market. They don't care if everyone notices immediately. They don't chase instant hype. They build quietly, patiently, and deliberately. Years later, their company dominates. The recognition comes, but it is meaningful, lasting, and hard-earned. That is the difference between chasing applause and creating value. Short-term praise steals long-term power. You have a choice: chase validation or focus on mastery. That is the key. Instant validation also creates dependency. When you rely on praise to feel motivated, you become vulnerable. One negative comment, one lack of likes, one missed opportunity can derail your momentum. That is dangerous. That is why the greatest creators, leaders, and innovators ignore it. They focus on improvement, not applause. They focus on discipline, not recognition. They focus on results, not reactions. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Say it again. Make it your mantra. Let it guide your daily effort. Here's how to apply this principle today. Identify one area of your life where you seek validation. It could be social media, work performance, relationships, or public recognition. Commit to focusing on the work itself, not the reaction. Set a daily habit that improves your skill or creates value without seeking approval. Track your progress privately. Measure results by improvement, not applause. Over time, your impact will compound. Your skill will grow. Your influence will multiply. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Quick wins fade. Slow growth lasts. Embed it. Live it. Ignoring instant validation is also liberating. When you release the need for approval, you gain control. You gain clarity. You gain freedom. You focus on what matters. You focus on mastery. You focus on creating work that endures. And that is how greatness is built. That is how legacies are formed. That is how ordinary people become extraordinary. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it again. Say it. Believe it. Live it. You now understand the principle. Likes, applause, and recognition are fleeting. True success is built quietly, patiently, and deliberately. You know that chasing validation steals your energy, focus, and long-term potential. You have committed, mentally, to focusing on creating value over seeking approval. You have chosen the slow, deliberate path that leads to mastery, influence, and lasting results. Short-term praise steals long-term power. Repeat it. Embed it. Live it. Next, we move to the principle that teaches you to trust invisible progress. Chapter 8. Trust the invisible progress. Most people quit too soon. They stop showing up because they can't see results immediately. They get frustrated. They lose motivation. They believe that if they can't measure success quickly, they are failing. But here's the truth. Most growth is invisible. The progress you make today is not always visible tomorrow. It takes time. It compounds silently. That is the reality of lasting transformation. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Repeat it. Say it aloud. Embed it in your mind. That is the key. Growth is not instant. Fitness transformations take months of consistent workouts, disciplined eating, and recovery. Startups take years of planning, testing, iterating, and refining before they succeed. Learning a new skill, coding, writing, music, takes thousands of small actions over time. The results are lagging indicators. The rewards come after the work, not during it. That is why patience is power. That is why consistency is king. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. That is the mantra of those who achieve greatness. The invisible progress is happening even when you don't see it. Every small step compounds into skill, knowledge, resilience, and momentum. Every action you take today strengthens your future self. Every repetition, every habit, every disciplined choice builds layers of growth that are unseen but unstoppable. You might feel like nothing is happening. You might feel invisible. You might feel frustrated. That is exactly when you must show up. That is exactly when you must trust the process. Repeat, trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Consider fitness transformations. You exercise consistently, but the mirror doesn't show immediate change. You eat clean, but the scale moves slowly. You feel like quitting because the results are invisible. Yet, every workout, every healthy meal, every disciplined choice compounds over weeks and months. Eventually, the results appear. And when they do, the transformation is undeniable. The same principle applies to startups, learning, writing, or any long-term goal. You cannot see the growth as it happens, but it is real. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Most people give up because they seek instant gratification. They measure progress by visible outcomes. They chase short-term results. That is the trap. Short-term wins fade. Quick validation disappears. But the invisible work, repeated consistently, creates lasting impact. Every expert, every leader, every innovator understands this principle. They focus on effort, not immediate outcomes. They focus on the process, not applause. They trust that if they show up every day, the results will arrive. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Repeat it again. Let it guide your actions. Here's the harsh truth. If you cannot trust invisible progress, you will quit. You will abandon growth because it doesn't feel rewarding in the moment. You will rely on external validation to measure success. You will chase hype, shortcuts, and quick wins. That is why most people never achieve their potential. The difference between those who fail and those who succeed is the ability to continue working when the results are invisible. That is the power of trust in the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Let's make this practical. Identify one area of your life where results are lagging. It could be fitness, a skill, a business, or personal development. Commit to showing up consistently for 30 days, 90 days, and beyond, without focusing on immediate outcomes. Track your effort, not the result. Focus on the small actions that compound. Every action you take builds momentum for the future. Over time, the invisible work will manifest as undeniable results. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Repeat it. Make it your mantra. Live it. Invisible progress also teaches resilience. When you continue working without immediate rewards, you strengthen patience, discipline, and mental toughness. You learn to act regardless of recognition. You learn to trust yourself and your choices. You develop faith in the compounding effect of effort. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary. This is how small, consistent effort creates unstoppable growth. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Embed it into every choice, every habit, every action. Consider a startup founder. They spend years building, iterating, and refining their product. Most days, nothing seems to change. Investors may not notice. Customers may not engage. The media ignores them. But the founder continues, day after day, refining systems, learning, improving. And years later, the success becomes undeniable. The growth was invisible all along, but it was real. This is why you must trust the process. Results will arrive, but only if you persist. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Repeat it. Live it. The invisible progress principle also applies to personal mastery. Learning a language, writing a book, improving a skill, all take small, daily actions. You may feel stagnant. You may feel unseen. But progress is occurring beneath the surface. The compounding effect of effort is invisible but inevitable. If you quit too early, you lose the compounding advantage. If you persist, mastery becomes inevitable. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Say it. Embed it. Live it. You now understand that most growth is invisible. You understand that results lag behind action. You know that patience, consistency, and faith in your effort are essential. You have committed mentally to trusting the process, even when nothing appears to be happening. You have chosen to persist, to show up, and to build silently. That is the foundation of slow, unstoppable growth. Trust the process. Trust the process. Trust the process. Repeat it. Live it. Embed it. Next, we move to the principle that protects your energy and focus for the long game. Chapter 9. Build systems, not goals. Most people chase goals. They write lists. They set deadlines. They imagine the moment they arrive. But here's the truth. Goals are temporary. Goals can motivate, but they can also create stress, inconsistency, and frustration. Goals tell you where to go, but they do not guide your daily actions. Systems, on the other hand, do. Systems turn repeated actions into automatic results. Systems create momentum. Systems build growth that lasts. Repeat it. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Embed it. Goals are destinations. Systems are the roads that take you there. You can stare at a destination all you want, but if the road is broken, the journey will fail. That is why focusing solely on goals is dangerous. You might achieve a goal, but without a system, the result is temporary. You might lose the gains. You might burn out. You might chase the next goal endlessly. Systems, however, make progress automatic. They ensure slow, steady, unstoppable growth. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it. Embed it in your habits. Live it. Look at top performers across any field. Athletes, writers, CEOs, creators, they don't rely on goals alone. They rely on daily routines. They rely on processes that compound. A basketball player doesn't just aim to become better. They practice free throws, dribble drills, and conditioning every day. A writer doesn't aim to finish a book. They write one page, edit, and revise daily. A CEO doesn't aim to grow revenue. They optimize systems, meetings, and workflows consistently. Systems automate progress. Goals alone do not. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it again. Goals can be motivating, but they also create pressure. When you fixate on the outcome, you attach your self-worth to it. When the goal is missed, you feel like a failure. When the goal is delayed, you feel frustrated. That is why relying solely on goals is risky. Systems remove that emotional volatility. Systems focus on action. Systems focus on daily consistency. Systems turn effort into automatic results. Systems ensure progress even when motivation fades. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Say it again. Let it guide your daily decisions. Consider health and fitness. A person may set a goal, lose 20 pounds in 2 months. The goal is attractive, but it is short-term and outcome-based. If they fail to hit the number, motivation collapses. Now consider a system. Eat a balanced meal, exercise 30 minutes, track water intake daily. This system creates steady progress. Results are inevitable over time. The goal may shift or expand, but the system remains constant. That is the power of systems. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it. Believe it. Live it. Another truth. Systems compound effort over time. Small actions repeated daily multiply into mastery, skill, and results. Writing 1 page every day turns into a book in months. Practicing a skill every day creates mastery in a year. Saving a small amount of money consistently grows wealth over decades. Systems make action automatic. Systems make progress invisible but unstoppable. Goals alone cannot create this effect. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Embed it. Repeat it. Live it. Here's how to build your own systems. Identify the area of your life you want to improve. Break it into small, repeatable actions. Focus on the actions, not the outcome. Schedule them daily. Track them consistently. Adjust as needed. Over time, the system compounds into results far beyond what a single goal could achieve. Momentum builds. Habits solidify. Skill grows. You stop relying on motivation. You stop chasing validation. You rely on your system. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it. Embed it. Trust it. Top performers are relentless with their systems. They understand that results are a byproduct of disciplined routines, not a chase for goals. They show up every day even when they don't feel like it. They focus on the process, not the applause. They focus on improvement, not the destination. That is why their growth is slow but unstoppable. That is why they dominate their fields. That is the difference between fleeting success and lasting achievement. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Say it again. Let it guide your habits. Live it. Finally, systems create freedom. When your processes are automated, you no longer worry about outcomes. You no longer chase validation. You focus on action. You focus on mastery. You focus on growth. You free yourself from the emotional roller coaster of outcome-based thinking. That is why systems are superior to goals. That is why slow, steady progress is better than bursts of effort. That is why the extraordinary rely on systems, not goals. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it one last time. Live it. You now understand the principle. Goals alone create stress and inconsistency. Systems create momentum, compounding results, and freedom. You know how to shift your focus from outcomes to processes. You have committed mentally to building daily systems that automate your progress. You have chosen the slow, deliberate path that creates unstoppable growth. Goals tell you where to go. Systems get you there. Repeat it. Embed it. Live it. Next, we move to the final principle that ties all previous lessons together. Chapter 10. Master the long game. Most people play the quick game. They chase instant results. They seek fast wins. They look for shortcuts. They want recognition now, satisfaction now, and rewards immediately. But life does not work that way. Life rewards those who play the long game. Those who commit to patience, discipline, and consistency. Those who build slowly, steadily, and strategically. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it, the long game wins. Every single time. Say it aloud. Let it sink in. Embed it in your mind. That is the principle of lasting success. The quick game feels exciting. It gives bursts of dopamine, validation, and temporary satisfaction. But it is fleeting. Quick wins fade. Quick recognition disappears. Short-term gains rarely compound. They leave you exhausted, frustrated, and behind. The long game, however, is invisible at first. It is slow. It is steady. It is boring to some. But it builds momentum. It creates skill. It compounds results silently until your efforts are unstoppable. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Believe it. Live it. Entrepreneurs, investors, and visionaries understand this principle. They do not chase trends or hype. They do not give in to instant gratification. They plan, they prepare, and they execute over years, not weeks. Warren Buffett didn't get rich overnight. Steve Jobs didn't build Apple in a day. Elon Musk didn't master SpaceX in months. They played the long game. They invested effort consistently. They embraced patience. They ignored distractions. And decades later, their results are undeniable. The long game wins. Every single time. Playing the long game requires discipline. It requires strategy. It requires resisting the urge to seek quick validation. It requires showing up consistently even when no one is watching. It requires trusting invisible progress. It requires embracing boring work. All the principles we've discussed, patience, compounding effort, systems over goals, ignoring instant validation, they converge in this final lesson. The long game is not easy. It is not glamorous, but it is unstoppable. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Let it guide your every action. Here's a truth few people grasp. Shortcuts are illusions. They promise speed but deliver failure. They tempt you with immediate rewards but sabotage your growth. People who chase shortcuts burn out, lose focus, and waste their potential. Meanwhile, those who embrace slow, steady progress, those who trust the process, build systems, and show up every day, outlast and outperform them all. Momentum compounds silently. Skill multiplies. Opportunities grow. The long game wins. Every single time. Say it again. Make it your mantra. Live it. To play the long game, you must master consistency. You must resist distractions. You must value invisible progress over instant applause. You must focus on foundations, not fireworks. You must prioritize growth over validation. You must commit to showing up, day after day, week after week, month after month, regardless of immediate rewards. This is the path of the extraordinary. This is the path of sustainable success. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Embed it. Live it. Consider a startup founder. They invest years building a product, refining systems, and growing quietly. They endure criticism, setbacks, and periods of no recognition. They resist the lure of shortcuts and hype. They focus on fundamentals. They focus on process. Years later, the payoff arrives, not in fleeting applause but in lasting impact, revenue, and legacy. This is the power of the long game. The results are real. They are undeniable. They are permanent. The long game wins. Every single time. Playing the long game also strengthens your mindset. It builds resilience. It builds patience. It builds confidence. You learn to trust yourself and your choices. You learn to act even when the results are invisible. You learn to stay disciplined when motivation fades. You learn that real success is earned, not handed out. This mindset is unstoppable. This mindset protects you from distractions, hype, and impulsive decisions. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Make it part of your identity. Live it daily. Practical steps to master the long game. Focus on daily systems, not short-term goals. Systems compound over time. Commit to consistency even when results are invisible. Progress is silent at first. Ignore instant validation and distractions. Your energy is precious. Guard it. Trust the process. Embrace boring work and resist shortcuts. Long-term gains require patience. Revisit and refine your systems, but never abandon the slow, deliberate path. When you combine all these principles, you create unstoppable momentum. You become a force that cannot be derailed by hype, impatience, or criticism. You are no longer chasing fleeting wins. You are building lasting impact. You are playing the long game. You are creating results that compound and endure. The long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Say it. Believe it. Live it. Now here's the final lesson. Slow growth is still growth. Every day you show up, every system you implement, every habit you reinforce. These are victories. They compound silently. They build momentum. They turn ordinary effort into extraordinary results. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Ignore shortcuts. Build systems. Commit to consistency. Focus on the long game. You are not failing when progress is invisible. You are winning silently. The long game wins. Every single time. Before we close, a quick note. If this audiobook helped you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We release content designed to transform your mindset, sharpen your discipline, and help you master the long game in every area of life. Click subscribe and join the journey. Your future self will thank you. You now have the blueprint. You now understand the principles. You now know how to play the long game. Show up every day. Embrace patience, systems, and compounding effort. Trust invisible progress. Ignore validation. Commit to the boring work. Build mastery. And remember, the long game wins. Every single time. Repeat it. Live it. Embed it.